I was a little concerned about my Hollywood career there. I thought maybe I'd have to cast him in the next film, but and then I met the High Commissioner, and he looks like he should be a hero in the next Indian movie that we do. So it was all, and then I made my transition in Hollywood from tennis to the entertainment industry in 1980, and for the first 5 years nobody knew how to pronounce my name. So so it's always confusing when a whole room full of people say my name right. But it's growing up in India and with the culture and tradition and all the wonderful mixture of religions and everything in India. It's influenced everything that I do, my life, the movies that I make. Very often I have filmmakers from India saying, how come this movie feels Indian? The Double Impact, Twins, it's been done, or Premonition with Sandy Bullock. It has all that stuff about karma and all this business. So I said, well, I went to school and college and spent the first 20 years of my life in India, and go back all the time, and it's always it is so ingrained, and it's getting this Soul of India award about integration and all that is such an honor, because in everything that I do, I think India is always uppermost and plays an extraordinary role. Some years ago, when I was approached to do my autobiography, I said, well, I'm in my 50s, and the 50s are the new 30s, so maybe in about 30 or 40 years it would make sense to do. But then about 3 years ago, an event occurred. My father was going through a little bit of dementia and was starting to forget things. So when I used to go back to Chennai, I would take the little tape recorder with me and ask my parents questions, and my mom and dad, and they would tell me about kind of the extraordinary lives that they'd lived, and my mom especially, who was an amazing businesswoman, a mother, a wife, and also a very difficult taskmaster, because my friends in Chennai would tell us about all the years when we were very young, my brothers and I, and we'd go out on a 4-mile, 5-mile run, but my mother would follow us in her car to make sure that we actually ran the 4 or 5 miles, and we wouldn't throw water on ourselves and come back. And she was very specific about our discipline and our focus about tennis, and it was really great. And as their sort of story unfolded in my tape recorder, I decided that I was going to write this book, my autobiography, and it's been a very emotional, very raw journey. I'm a very bad writer, but so don't judge me by the book, just judge me by the events, which was great fun. But I do talk about sort of the ups and downs of my life through tennis, and the insecurities of growing up with two very talented brothers who are more talented than I was, at least at that time, who are better looking than I was, at least at that time, and who are taller than me, unfortunately, even today. But it's been a great journey. I think with the support of my parents, my brothers. When I was growing up in Chennai, I used to go to the Sapphire Theatre there and watched The Sound of Music 34 times. And then I came a full circle, and as I served for many years on the board for foreign film at the Academy, I had sitting next to me before he passed away, Robert Wise, who directed The Sound of Music, and I'd tell him, Bob, I saw your movie 34 times. It got me into the business. And he said, oh, that's where all my box office came from. So I said, yeah, well, had a great influence on my life. But one would sit in those great theaters in India, the big movie theaters where the screens would open, unlike the sort of multiplex theaters today that you sit in with 30 seats. It was these big theaters, the screens would open, and you sort of got involved with the magic of the movies. So it was a great influence in my life. And then over the years, traveling with my brothers in the 70s, I think it was the iconic decade of tennis with Connors and Borg, and a few years later McEnroe, Gerolaitis, Lendl, amazing tennis players. Nastase, who used to coach me, a complete maniac. It was absolutely a great era for tennis. I was honored to be a part of it, and reached the finals of the Wimbledon Juniors here, and then went on to LA to win the World Team Tennis Championships. By the way, before I forget, amongst the names that you mentioned, you didn't mention Roger Spottiswoode, my friend, who was a great director and directed 2 of the Bond movies, amongst many other films. Brando Colici, who's producing a movie with me right now, and does a lot of stuff for National Geographic and CNN. So getting to LA in 1975 and playing tennis for the LA tennis team and winning championships in 1978, and finally in 1980 making this sort of extraordinary but strange decision to go into the entertainment industry. My parents, of course, looked at me and started laughing for a while, but then when they stopped laughing, they said, "Are you serious? Are you really going to do this?" So I said yes, and so for the next 6 years, I think when I used to go knocking on the doors in Hollywood, but everybody, of course, knew me as a tennis player, and I would play in these really bad tennis games with a lot of powerful executives and producers and directors and stars, and I mean they were really bad, but that shows you how badly I wanted to get into the business. And took me 6 years to realize that they all wanted me on their courts on Saturday morning, but they loved to play tennis with me, but they didn't really want to make a movie with me. So for the next few years, I made a lot of small movies that I raised a little bit of money, made all these little films. And then I was sitting in my office one day in 1984, and I got this 8x10 envelope of this actor, and not having really anything to do, I saw the number there and I called him up. He came over. The kid couldn't speak English very well, and he said, so I said to him, what do you do? So he said, I act. So I said, yeah, well, I produce too, but I mean, what do you do to make money? So he said, well, I drive limousines. So I said, okay. So we go out, we try to make a movie together, we can't get a movie made, and then we split up. And then in 1990, I've made a bunch of small movies. I'm sitting at the Cannes Film Festival and at the Carlton Hotel, and this kid comes running across the Carlton lobby and he says, Ashok. So I said, yeah. So he says, well, out of 800 photographs I sent out, you were the only call I got back. I didn't feel like telling him I didn't have anything to do at that time. But he was so excited. So he said, we've got to make a movie together. So the kid's English had gotten a little bit better, not very good, but a little bit better. And his name was Jean-Claude Van Damme. And we made a movie called Double Impact, which we made for $11 million. And it grossed, over $100 million worldwide. And Jean-Claude became a real movie star, and people started returning my calls. Hollywood has a way of, if you're really successful and make successful movies and make them a lot of money, then they return your calls. And after you make some bad movies, they beat the hell out of you. So it teaches you to make movies that make money. So the last 25 years it's been a great ride. I've had the pleasure of working with all of the studios, but I think the lessons that I've learned in India from my parents have sort of stood the test of time, and I think everything that I do sort of stems from the fact that integrally, I'm Indian, and everything that I try to make and how I make it, and the principles and discipline and focus comes from India and from my tennis background. It's an honor to be here this evening. The one thing I can say, because I've been asked this question from a lot of the IJA ladies and gentlemen this evening, is about the Indian cinema industry and about Hollywood and all of these things. I have great friends in India, and I think the Indian cinema industry is one of the great cinema industries with extraordinary talent in front of and behind the camera. In fact, I think the directors of photography and designers and the costumes and the things that Indian cinema is able to get on. I keep calling it Indian cinema, not Bollywood, for a reason, but because I think it encompasses a lot more than just Bollywood. And Bollywood feels like a little bit of a ripoff. So the Indian cinema is so iconic, I think, in what is done. The only thing that I would love to say is that every time I go to India, I get pitched by actors and directors, but I never actually get pitched by writers. So the hope is that writers who I hold in the greatest regard. I think whether you write a screenplay or a novel or whatever, the idea is perhaps the most important thing, and the idea of the way you tell the story is the most important thing. And directors and actors are given so much attention in India that I think writers need to be paid more and given a lot more attention. So just as an aside, I think that's of great importance. And I'll never forget when I walked into the lobby in Mumbai of the JW Marriott, I had this one very popular director come running up to me and say, Ashok. So I said, yeah, hey, what's going on? So he says, well, your movie Bandits. He said, I used the ending in my movie. And I think he was wanting me to say thank you. But I'm not quite sure what I said. I was so shocked at the whole idea. But, hopefully the endings don't come from Avatar or Inception or Bandits or Ghost Rider, but they're actually great original stories that come from the culture and traditions of India, which are more spectacular, I think, than anywhere else in the world. So I look forward to always seeing those movies, but this is a great evening, and I thank you all for being here.